Julius Malema, arguably the most famous South African politician outside of South Africa, calls his political party the Economic Freedom Fighters because he argues that despite the fact that the ANC has ruled this country for 32 years, black people have never achieved real economic freedom. But what if the very fact that the ANC took over South Africa from the old National Party is actually a very good reason why black people lack true economic freedom? Stay tuned because in today's video we are going to explore the true history of one of the economically freest nations ever to exist on the African continent. And believe it or not, it existed on South African soil during the days of apartheid. On the 4th of December 1981, the land of the Ciskei formally declared its own independence from the Republic of South Africa following a democratic referendum in which 99% of the Xhosa people living there voted for full independence. The new country not only had its own government, flag and postage stamps, but also its own national airline with its own military, with its own capital situated in the city of Bishu in what is today known as the Eastern Cape. It was furthermore also the home to one of the most prestigious universities on the African continent, the University of Fort Hare, which was gradually recognized as functioning under the sole jurisdiction of the Ciskei's Department of Education. This university is world-renowned for having no less than 7 presidents numbering among its alumni: Nelson Mandela of South Africa, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, Seretse Khama of Botswana, and Julius Nyerere and Kenneth Kaunda, and of course Thabo Mbeki and Hastings Banda. Following independence, the Ciskei government used its freedom to write its own laws under its own constitution to transform this relatively small and undeveloped territory into one of the most free market-friendly and business-friendly jurisdictions in all of Africa. Its president, Lennox Sebe, appointed a commission to formulate a new economic policy for the young country. The commission included leading scholars such as Leon Louw, the prominent South African libertarian and co-founder of the Free Market Foundation. Louw, despite being born into a conservative Afrikaner family, had fallen under the spell of Marxist thinking for a period during his days as a student at the University of Witwatersrand. Louw, however, experienced a decisive philosophical shift during his mid-20s when he was an articled clerk at one of South Africa's leading law firms. At the age of 27, he co-founded the Free Market Foundation and served as its executive director for many years. When Louw was appointed as the head of his Economic Advisory Commission by President Sebe, the Ciskei was given the opportunity to implement its own economic model based on private enterprise, economic freedom, low taxation, deregulation, and strong incentives for investors to invest into this new young country. The Ciskei was subsequently marketed internationally as Africa's Switzerland, a small business-friendly state that would attract foreign capital by offering investors great economic freedom, greater than they could obtain elsewhere on the continent. The incentives of doing business in the Ciskei were extraordinary. Companies operating there received access to an economic environment with extremely low taxation, cheap labor, few regulations, and dramatically reduced operating costs. Even though the government subsidized factory rental costs, companies paid no corporate tax. This means that 3 of the 4 largest costs normally facing a manufacturer, tax, labor, and factory premises, were either almost eliminated or drastically reduced. The apartheid government of the NP itself also helped the Ciskei greatly by sending delegations abroad to recruit investors for this new homeland in South Africa, with particular attention being paid to Taiwan and Hong Kong. These East Asian economies had industrialized rapidly through export-oriented manufacturing, but by the early 80s, their wages were beginning to rise too rapidly for low-skilled labor to go on. The CISCA offered Taiwanese manufacturers an opportunity to relocate their labor-intensive production to a much cheaper jurisdiction while retaining access to the South African infrastructure and markets. By 1988, approximately 80 Taiwanese factories were already operating in the CISCA. They produced everything from clothing and textiles to fishing rods, toys, bicycles, and electronics. This, of course, created thousands of jobs for the people of this new country. Apart from foreign investment, the free market economy of the CISCA also provided ample opportunities for local black entrepreneurs, with especially local textile and clothing producers creating large numbers of entry-level jobs that did not require workers to possess any qualifications. Much of this new industrial workforce consisted of Xhosa women, most of whom were entering formal employment for the very first time in their lives. One of the best examples of a local CISCA businessman capitalizing on this free market environment in the CISCA as well as all the subsidies from the apartheid government was Patrick Mbiko, whose small clothing factory expanded from no employees to 50 in less than a year, at which time they were producing around 1,400 children's tracksuits every single day for a prominent American retail chain. As an independent country, the CISCA also used its postage stamps to advertise the emerging economic character of this land. They commonly depicted products and industries such as handmade carpets, clothing, and bicycle factories, symbols of a homeland attempting to present itself as an emerging manufacturing economy rather than merely a rural labor hub. But while the free market principles applied here certainly helped the local economy boom, it would be a mistake to simply describe the CISCA of the 1980s as a libertarian success story. Its economy still relied heavily on subsidies from the old South African or apartheid government, and in 1984 alone, 3 years after its independence, it received no less than 120 million rands in subsidies from Pretoria, which is the equivalent of around 260 million US dollars today, adjusted for inflation. Still, the free market economy of the CISCA made such an impression globally, showing the world that even a small, poor and unrecognized African territory could attract massive foreign factories when it offered investors what they needed: low taxes, affordable labor, reduced regulations, and a government that actively welcomes business into the country. In fact, according to the historian Quinn Slobodian, the CISCA made such an impression on John Blundell, the prominent British economist serving as executive vice president of the Institute of Humane Studies in California, that he even called upon Western governments to formally recognize CISCA's independence. In his report published following a visit to the CISCA, Blundell argued that, and I quote, "If CISCA sticks to its free market reforms and put its civil rights house in order, this tiny African nation could end up offering the troubled continent a new model of development." These kinds of hard-hitting, unfiltered historical truths and impactful quotes from the primary sources are gems you will find only on this channel. Here at the Willem Petsche Group, we have a hard-working and dedicated research team that brings you this much-needed information precisely because we believe that this is the only way we can truly make the necessary progress to carve out a future for our people in this part of the world and away from the ANC's and his rotten ideology. And you, the viewer, already part of this fight, can up your participation by becoming a patron of our group by simply following these easy steps on the banner below. Sadly, the CISCA was once again incorporated into South Africa shortly after President Sebe's government was violently overthrown in a military coup led by Brigadier Oupa Gokozo in 1990. And since 1994, it has been ruled by the corrupt and Marxist-leaning ANC, which has effectively undone all of the progress that was made towards true economic freedom in the 1980s by Sebe and Low. If this hadn't been the case, one could only imagine which heights the Ciskei would have achieved by now had they kept their independence and their economic model. In a recent video, we also highlighted how much economic damage the ANC rule has actually done to the global economy as a whole. You can check out that full report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right now. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate the gift of your time. Goodbye and God bless.